Testing, testing, 1, 2, 3, testing, testing, 1, 2, 3. We are on the air. This is Thesis.
I mean, the Persian Empire's army was so big, they would dry out the rivers. But Herodotus says that in his book. When all my life, growing up, through the 80s, all I remember being taught at school is that we should be colorblind. But now it seems like these people that call themselves progressives are looking back past the civil rights to where now I should care about what skin color I am or the other person is. Educate yourself, open your eyes. Don't be led around like sheep or cattle.
Government will always push its boundaries, no matter who is in charge.
Today's show, I wanted to talk about a little bit about like legalization and things like that. When markets get saturated, only the strong survive.
We see the crossover from what religion teaches us about behaviors, and we can see the proof in the science.
I'm not scared of the virus. I'm not scared of the pandemic. You know why? Because I know that there's something greater than all of this.
This is Thesis. Everything is everything. I am your host, Jay Marie.
3, 2, 1, we are on the air. This is Thesis. Everything is everything. I am your host, Jay Marie. How's it going out there, folks? Hope you're doing well. Thank you for showing up and hanging out with us today. Coming to you live from Zombie Land. Yes, sir. Well, I want to thank you for showing up today and checking in on us. I hope you do find yourself well and healthy and safe. All right. Yeah, I am here. I've been planning to get on, and so I went ahead and decided. I started studying today, and I went ahead and decided let's jump on in because I have some things coming up tomorrow, which were gonna interfere with me getting a show down. So I decided to let's go ahead and knock it out, so we won't have to wait an extra week. So. All right. So I hope you are doing well. And again, I appreciate you spending some time with us today. Real quick, before we get started, I just want to say welcome any new and all listeners on our platforms. If you like what you hear, please don't forget to hit the subscribe button and share and tell your friends and all that. If you are on with us on YouTube and Facebook, I thank you for that, and want to welcome everyone to our family here. So, getting that out of the way. All right, so I've been digging in a little bit to our next topic. Actually, I'm very well versed in what we're going to talk about today. We hear a lot about the Gulag Archipelago. I've brought it up, before, not only on my show, but like in some super chats, and then, other people have brought it up, like Jordan Peterson brings it up. He studies it, and you've heard, many of you out there have heard this book that the Gulag Archipelago. Okay, maybe you might have heard of what it's about or have some short idea, some idea of what it may be. I think that this book is the importance of this book is it's like immeasurable. This book, the Gulag Archipelago, was instrumental in helping bring down the former Soviet Union. Because of the information that is in there, it tells the tale of the atrocities that the Soviet Union, that the Soviet government did to its own people, right? So a lot of people bring it up, a lot of people talk about it, and I wasn't sure how many or if many of you out there has ever maybe took the time to read something. Like it's a big long book. We're gonna get into some information about the book itself, but I don't know if many of you or have heard audiobook or have read some of the chapters or footnotes or anything, but for sure a lot of us have heard people talk about it, but you know how we like to go in depth here. So what I wanted to do was, since we've been going kind of heavy lately, I wanted to give us a little break, but we don't really take breaks around here, because what we do is very important. What we try to learn is very important. So by we taking a break, I mean me taking a break in the talking part, right? So what we're gonna do is, what I decided to do is, we're gonna listen together to a few chapters of the Gulag Archipelago. We're gonna start at the beginning, and we're gonna listen to, of course, one of my, not one of my favorite audio version of it, because I like the narrator has like an accent, so it kind of gives that feeling of, Soviet, something like that. So I really like that version of it. And what we're going to do is we're going to listen, to about 40 minutes of it or whatever, so you can get an idea of what this book is about and how it starts. Now, the Gulag Archipelago is a tremendous book. I mean, there's 3 volumes, and it's a total of around 1,800 pages to 2,000 pages, depending on what, size font, what translation, you get. But we're looking at about a 2,000 page book, so that takes time to accomplish, and as you know, I like to uh, uh, tell you guys that audiobook, I do audiobooks. So like the Gulag Archipelago is something around 80 hours worth of audio on audiobook side, on the audio side, 80 hours worth. So that's a huge investment of your time, but it's well worth it. And I've done the audio version 3 times minimal, and I've jumped in and out of it after that several times, looking and digging for certain information. But so I'm well versed in the Gulag. So what we're gonna do, we're gonna listen to it together, but I'm gonna give you just a little bit of information. We're gonna go over some information so we can get an idea of the setting of the setting of where this takes place, what was going on a little bit in society, what time of during what time were these things happening, and this and that, right? Because look, the author Alexander Solzhenitsyn, he was thrown in the gulags, right? But the entire story isn't, the entire book and stories in the book isn't about just him. He tells his story of what he went through, but he compiled the stories of all the other, not all, but many of the other prisoners, and compiled them together and put this story together to give a view from the inside of the treachery going on in the prison systems and in the government system and in the secret police. So he shares all this information in the different chapters and in different volumes, right? But it's such a tremendous work of art, a work of literature, but it's also very it comes with a lot of weight. It's very como se dice, like it carries a load. It's a burden. When you're listening to it, when you're reading it, because it's a constant cycle of betrayal and punishment, and it's a cycle, and over and it just, so many people suffered, and it's just a heavy burden to be able to read it and much, and listen to it. It's something tremendous that, it's some work, but we're strong-minded, strong-willed around here, so I know we can handle that, right? So let's go ahead and let's just go ahead and start. Let me give you a little bit of information what we got going on here, okay? So the Gulag Archipelago, the reason he called it the archipelago, it's like a system of islands. A system of islands that were spread out throughout the Soviet Union. Prison camps, labor camps, spread out. And these camps were like little towns. You know what I'm saying? They were some of them held thousands, tens of thousands of people. So the Gulag prison systems was created in 1918 after the Soviet Revolution, and once once they took power and control after the revolution, they started the prison system to punish political prisoners, political enemies, right? It was created in 1918 and it peaked around the 1950s. There was 500 camps, labor camps, spread out throughout the entirety of the Soviet Union, which is tremendous landmass. And records show that there was over 20 million people incarcerated throughout that time period. Of course, many have said that the numbers could be higher than that, but that's the number that's a consensus. As the 1 in 6 adults in the Soviet Union had been to the camps or were deported, exiled out of the country. 1 in 6 adults during that time period. They would use the gulags for political opponents. They started off with the political opponents when they won the revolution. Now, we're not going to go into the history of the revolution, but where they wanted to take out the other parties or whatever, so they start, killing each other, wiping each other out. And they used the prison systems to get rid of people, But at the same time, they needed laborers to build, this paradise or whatever they were going to build, right? So they used prison laborers to help build their whatever. Concentration. There were concentration camps. They were corrective labor re-education camps. They were called. You're not thinking correctly. You're not acting right. You don't. The groups. They started. With priests and professors and of course political enemies, but folks who they deemed could become a problem. So they would arrest them and throw them into the system, into the Gulag system, slave labor camps. And these camps were like, okay, go to jail like in downtown. No, you're in Siberia. You're in the woods. They had different camps in different areas that had certain resources. They had a camp for where they were digging for gold. They had a camp where they were chopping wood. They had a camp for coal. So they were spread out, and they would send people to these places. As the gulags were used to punish. The Gulag Archipelago, it's like a horrifying look into the depths that the state would go, that the state will go to keep and retain power over the people. It just shows the lengths that they will go, the lying and the cheating and the conniving, the forced labor and the forced confessions and the torture for confessions, and horrible. Like, it's heavy and but if we need to know these things about history because these things occur. Those aren't the only examples. Now Mussolini was a tyrant, but he didn't get a chance to build camps. But I'm sure he probably threw a lot of people in jail or whatever. But we know Hitler has, and we know Mao, and we know that these from the 20th century we've seen these tyrants and what they do, right? But we could go pre 20th century to past history, and we can see that tyranny is the same no matter what time period in human history. There's always going to be a tyrant, a king, a someone with power that punishes the enemy and uses them for labor and tortures them and enslaves them and imprisons them, right? So real quick, a little bit of history on Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Now, he was a captain in the Red Army in World War II. So see, here's the thing is, once the system becomes so crazy and corrupt with power and thirst with power, they developed quotas to where it's like, we need these amount of people arrested every month, this amount of people confessions every month, this amount of executions every month. They had quotas, so they would arrest everyone and anyone, and they would force you and torture you to tell on your neighbors or your friends, even if they First and foremost, you're innocent, but now they forcing you to say that your neighbor or your friends did something, right? So they needed to fill these camps up. They needed labor. They had quotas, all these things, right? So so even people that were loyal, after a while, even people that were loyal to the system. He was a captain in the Red Army. He was an officer in the Red Army, and they arrested him because he corresponded with a friend, and he's very philosophical. They talk philosophy and ideals and stuff, and in one of the letters that they intercepted, he maybe questioned the mannerism, the manner that the government was doing certain things, and that was enough for them to arrest him and to throw him in the gulag. They charged him with sedition or anti-revolutionary activity or whatever. They had all these charges, right? So the arrest part of the people who are innocent, the people who are part of the party, the people who are helping, they get arrested, and then like, what is going on? That's the most like, oh, they think that, well, I'm part of the party. I'm in the union. I work for the but that's the thing is, they don't care who you are, if you work for them, if you're loyal to the party. They don't care. When you have quotas, when you become just a number in the eyes of a tyrant, of a tyrannical dragon, right? You're just a number. You don't have there's no humanity behind you. I need quotas. I need I need laborers. Give me these people. So it becomes something out of control, and they just start arresting as many people for whatever. Now, okay, let me just make sure there's anything else I want to tell you. So history. We look at it. They say 20 million people were in the gulags, but millions more were executed, because when you get arrested, a lot of them were sent. If they charged you with a certain high level sedition type thing, they could be sentenced to execution. And I mean, in a matter of days. They arrest you, they question you, 2 or 3 days later they find you guilty, and boom. You know what I'm saying? So this is the kind of things that Alexander Solzhenitsyn talks about in the story, in his book. And it goes into detail into how they work the systems inside the prison, the gulags, and who they hire and what they do, right? Okay, so enough of me talking already. So if you are on YouTube watching us, we're gonna chill, sit back and listen. So get your favorite cigar, little drink, and we're gonna listen together. What I did is I went ahead and I went ahead and went to the beginning of the first chapter, which is called Arrest, which is basically goes over the arrest of the people. This is chapter 1 of volume 1. So it starts off with the stories of how arrests happen, like how I like to do is, while we listen, we want to keep in mind anything that we've seen or heard or seen on the TVs, or recent activity in our local government, or on, in our society, or anything that matches, or we always want to try to find things that repeat themselves. So keep in mind anything, that might have happened lately or recently or in your recent memory. And see if you can find any association with what we are going to hear. So I went ahead and forwarded past the introduction and all that, and we're starting right at the beginning. So this is chapter 1, Arrest, Gulag Archipelago, Alexander Solzhenitsyn. Let's do this.
Chapter 1, Arrest. How do people get to this clandestine archipelago? Hour by hour, planes fly there, ships steer their course there, and trains thunder off to it, but all with nary a mark on them to tell of their destination. And at ticket windows or at travel bureaus for Soviet or foreign tourists, the employees would be astounded if you were to ask for a ticket to go there. They know nothing, and they've never heard of the archipelago as a whole, or of any of its innumerable islands. Those who go to the archipelago to administer it get there via the training schools of the Ministry of Internal Affairs. Those who go there to be guards are conscripted via the military conscription centers. And those who, like you and me, dear reader, go there to die, must get there solely and compulsorily via arrest. Arrest. Need it be said that it is a breaking point in your life, a bolt of lightning which has scored a direct hit on you, that it is an unassimilable spiritual earthquake not every person can cope with, as a result of which people often slip into insanity. The universe has as many different centers as there are living beings in it. Each of us is a center of the universe, and that universe is shattered when they hiss at you, "You are under arrest." If you are arrested, can anything else remain unshattered by this cataclysm? But the darkened mind is incapable of embracing these displacements in our universe, and both the most sophisticated and the veriest simpleton among us, drawing on all life's experience, can gasp out only, "Me? What for?" And this is a question which, though repeated millions and millions of times before, has yet to receive an answer. Arrest is an instantaneous shattering thrust, expulsion, somersault from one state into another.
I just wanted to say real quick, sorry for interrupting. I just wanted to bring up real quick is so a lot of us that grew up in the hood, we've been to jail, we've been arrested many times. So being arrested, isn't something that we fear too much because we've been through it many times and we've spent time in jail or whatever. But for the innocent person, we're thugs and whatever. We know we're guilty and when we're whatever. But for the innocent person, for the priest and the innocent person who's under arrest, their mind just can't comprehend and doesn't know what to expect. Their whole mentality, their whole being isn't prepared for this world that's about to, that they're about to be thrown into. Because you're innocent. Hey, I'm innocent. What the hell? So that's one of the things that jump out a lot to me is the innocence of the people trying to figure out what is going on and why, because they've been told certain thing or whatever. So I just wanted to let put that in there real quick, but let's keep going.
We have been happily born, or perhaps have unhappily dragged our weary way, down the long and crooked streets of our lives, past all kinds of walls and fences made of rotting wood, rammed earth, brick, concrete, iron railings. We have never given a thought to what lies behind them. We have never tried to penetrate them with our vision or our understanding. But there is where the Gulag country begins, right next to us, 2 yards away from us. In addition, we have failed to notice an enormous number of closely fitted, well-disguised doors and gates in these fences. All those gates were prepared for us, every last one. And all of a sudden, the fateful gate swings quickly open, and 4 white male hands, unaccustomed to physical labor, but nonetheless strong and tenacious, grab us by the leg, arm, collar, cap, ear, and drag us in like a sack, and the gate behind us, the gate to our past life, is slammed shut, once and for all. That's all there is to it. You are arrested. And you'll find nothing better to respond with than a lamb-like bleat. Me? What for? That's what arrest is. It's a blinding flash and a blow which shifts the present instantly into the past, and the impossible into omnipotent actuality. That's all. And neither for the first hour nor for the first day will you be able to grasp anything else. Except that in your desperation the fake circus moon will blink at you. It's a mistake. They'll set things right. And everything which is by now comprised in the traditional, even literary image of an arrest will pile up and take shape, not in your own disordered memory, but in what your family and your neighbors in your apartment remember. The sharp nighttime ring, or the rude knock at the door, the insolent entrance of the unwiped jackboots of the unsleeping state security operatives, the frightened and cowed civilian witness at their backs. And what function does this civilian witness serve? The victim doesn't even dare think about it, and the operatives don't remember, but that's what the regulations call for, and so he has to sit there all night long and sign in the morning. The regulation, purposeless in itself, derives, NM recalls, from that strange time when the citizenry not only was supposed to, but actually dared to verify the actions of the police. For the witness, jerked from his bed, it is torture, too, to go out night after night to help arrest his own neighbors and acquaintances. The traditional image of arrest is also trembling hands packing for the victim, a change of underwear, a piece of soap, something to eat. And no one knows what is needed, what is permitted, what clothes are best to wear, and the security agents keep interrupting and hurrying you. You don't need anything, they'll feed you there, it's warm there. It's all lies, they keep hurrying you to frighten you. The traditional image of arrest is also what happens afterward, when the poor victim has been taken away. It is an alien, brutal and crushing force, totally dominating the apartment for hours on end, breaking, ripping, pulling from the walls, emptying things from wardrobes and desks onto the floor, shaking, dumping out and ripping apart, piling up mountains of litter on the floor, and the crunch of things being trampled beneath jackboots. And nothing is sacred in a search. During the arrest of the locomotive engineer Inoshin, a tiny coffin stood in his room, containing the body of his newly dead child. The jurists dumped the child's body out of the coffin and searched it. They shake sick people out of their sick beds, and they unwind bandages to search beneath them. When in 1937 they wiped out Dr. Kazakov's institute, the commission broke up the jars containing the lisates developed by him, even though patients who had been cured and others still being treated rushed around them, begging them to preserve the miraculous medicines. According to the official version, the lisates were supposed to be poisons. In that case, why should they not have been kept as material evidence? Nothing is so stupid as to be inadmissible during a search. For example, they seized from the antiquarian Chetverukhin a certain number of pages of Tsarist decrees, to wit, the decree on ending the war with Napoleon, on the formation of the Holy Alliance, and a proclamation of public prayers against cholera during the epidemic of 1830. From our greatest expert on Tibet, Vostrikov, they confiscated ancient Tibetan manuscripts of great value, and it took the pupils of the deceased scholar 30 years to wrest them from the KGB. When the Orientalist Nevsky was arrested, they grabbed Tangut manuscripts, and 25 years later the deceased victim was posthumously awarded a Lenin Prize for deciphering them. From Karger, they took his archive of the Yenisei Ostyaks and vetoed the alphabet and vocabulary he had developed for this people, and a small nationality was thereby left without any written language. It would take a long time to describe all this in educated speech, but there's a folk saying about the search which covers the subject. They are looking for something which was never put there. They carry off whatever they have seized, but sometimes they compel the arrested individual to carry it. Thus, Nina Alexandrovna Palchanskaya hauled over her shoulder a bag filled with the papers and letters of her eternally busy and active husband, the late great Russian engineer, carrying it into their moor, once and for all, forever. For those left behind after the arrest, there is the long tail end of a wrecked and devastated life, and the attempts to go and deliver food parcels. But from all the windows the answer comes in barking voices. Nobody here by that name. Never heard of him. Yes, and in the worst days in Leningrad, it took 5 days of standing in crowded lines just to get to that window. And it may be only after half a year or a year that the arrested person responds at all. Or else the answer is tossed out, deprived of the right to correspond. And that means once and for all. No right to correspondence. And that almost for certain means has been shot. In other words, we live in the cursed conditions in which a human being can disappear into the void, and even his closest relatives, his mother and his wife, do not know for years what has become of him. Is that right or not? That is what Lenin wrote in 1910 in his obituary of Babushkin. But let's speak frankly. Babushkin was transporting arms for an uprising and was caught with them when he was shot. He knew what he was doing. You couldn't say that about helpless rabbits like us. That's how we picture arrest to ourselves. The kind of night arrest described is, in fact, a favorite because it has important advantages. Everyone living in the apartment is thrown into a state of terror by the first knock at the door. The arrested person is torn from the warmth of his bed. He is in a daze, half asleep, helpless, and his judgment is befogged. In a night arrest, the state security men have a superiority in numbers. There are many of them, armed, against one person who hasn't even finished buttoning his trousers. During the arrest and search, it is highly improbable that a crowd of potential supporters will gather at the entrance. The unhurried, step-by-step visits, first to one apartment, then to another, tomorrow to a third and a fourth, provide an opportunity for the security operations personnel to be deployed with the maximum efficiency and to imprison many more citizens of a given town than the police force itself numbers. In addition, there's an advantage to night arrests, in that neither the people in neighboring apartment houses nor those on the city streets can see how many have been taken away. Arrests which frighten the closest neighbors are no event at all to those farther away. It's as if they had not taken place. Along that same asphalt ribbon on which the Black Mariahs scurry at night, a tribe of youngsters strides by day with banners, flowers, and gay, untroubled songs. But those who take, whose work consists solely of arrests, for whom the horror is boringly repetitive, have a much broader understanding of how arrests operate. They operate according to a large body of theory, and innocence must not lead one to ignore this. The science of arrest is an important segment of the course on general penology and has been propped up with a substantial body of social theory. Arrests are classified according to various criteria: nighttime and daytime, at home, at work, during a journey, first-time arrests and repeats, individual and group arrests. Arrests are distinguished by the degree of surprise required, the amount of resistance expected, even though in tens of millions of cases no resistance was expected, and in fact there was none. Arrests are also differentiated by the thoroughness of the required search. And there is a separate science of searches, too. I have had the chance to read a pamphlet on this subject for correspondence school law students in Alma-Ata. Its author praises highly those police officials who, in the course of their searches, went so far as to turn over 2 tons of manure, 8 cubic yards of firewood, or 2 loads of hay, cleaned the snow from an entire collective farm vegetable plot, dismantled brick ovens, dug up cesspools, checked out toilet bowls, looked into dog houses, chicken coops, bird houses, tore apart mattresses, ripped adhesive tape off people's bodies, and even tore out metal teeth in the search for microfilm. Students were advised to begin and to end with a body search. During the course of the search, the arrested person might have grabbed up something that had already been examined. They were also advised to return to the site of a search at a different time of day and to carry out the search all over again. By instructions either to make out or not to make out an inventory of confiscated property, or seal a room or apartment, to arrest the wife after the husband and send the children to an orphanage, or to send the rest of the family into exile, or to send the old folks to a labor camp too. No. Arrests vary widely in form. In 1926, Irma Mendel, a Hungarian, obtained through the Comintern 2 front-row tickets to the Bolshoi Theatre. Interrogator Klegel was courting her at the time, and she invited him to go with her. They sat through the show very affectionately, and when it was over, he took her straight to the Lubyanka. And if on a flowering June day in 1927 on Kuznetsky Most, the plump-cheeked, red-headed beauty Anna Skripnikova, who had just bought some navy blue material for a dress, climbed into a hansom cab with a young man about town, you can be sure it wasn't a lover's tryst at all, as the cabman understood very well and showed by his frown. He knew the organs don't pay. It was an arrest. In just a moment they would turn on the Lubyanka and enter the black maw of the gates. And if, some 22 springs later, Navy Captain second-rank Boris Bukovsky, wearing a white tunic and a trace of expensive eau de cologne, was buying a cake for a young lady, do not take an oath that the cake would ever reach the young lady, and not be sliced up instead by the knives of the men searching the captain, and then delivered to him in his first cell. No, one certainly cannot say that daylight arrest during a journey, or arrest in the middle of a crowd has ever been neglected in our country. However, it has always been clean-cut, and most surprising of all, the victims, in cooperation with the security men, have conducted themselves in the noblest conceivable manner, so as to spare the living from witnessing the death of the condemned. Not everyone can be arrested at home with a preliminary knock at the door, and if there is a knock, then it has to be the house manager or else the postman. And not everyone can be arrested at work either. If the person to be arrested is vicious, then it's better to seize him outside his ordinary milieu, away from his family and colleagues, from those who share his views, from any hiding places. It is essential that he have no chance to destroy, hide, or pass on anything to anyone. VIPs in the military or the party were sometimes first given new assignments, ensconced in a private railway car, and then arrested en route. Some obscure ordinary mortal, scared to death by epidemic arrests all around him, and already depressed for a week by sinister glances from his chief, is suddenly summoned to the local party committee, where he is beamingly presented with a vacation ticket to a Sochi sanatorium. The rabbit is overwhelmed and immediately concludes that his fears were groundless. After expressing his gratitude, he hurries home, triumphant, to pack his suitcase. It is only 2 hours till train time, and he scolds his wife for being too slow. He arrives at the station with time to spare, and there in the waiting room or at the bar he is hailed by an extraordinarily pleasant young man. "Don't you remember me, Pyotr Ivanitch?" Pyotr Ivanitch has difficulty remembering. "Well, not exactly, you see, although—" The young man, however, is overflowing with friendly concern. "Come now, how can that be? I'll have to remind you." And he bows respectfully to Pyotr Ivanitch's wife. "You must forgive us. I'll keep him only 1 minute." The wife accedes, and trustingly the husband lets himself be led away by the arm, forever, or for 10 years. The station is thronged, and no one notices anything. Oh, you citizens who love to travel, do not forget that in every station there are a GPU branch and several prison cells. This importunity of alleged acquaintances is so abrupt that only a person who has not had the wolfish preparation of camp life is likely to pull back from it. Do not suppose, for example, that if you are an employee of the American Embassy by the name of Alexander D., you cannot be arrested in broad daylight on Gorky Street, right by the Central Telegraph Office. Your unfamiliar friend dashes through the press of the crowd and opens his plundering arms to embrace you. "Sasha!" He simply shouts at you with no effort to be inconspicuous. "Hey, pal, long time no see. Come on over, let's get out of the way." At that moment, a Pobeda sedan draws up to the curb, and several days later TASS will issue an angry statement to all the papers, alleging that informed circles of the Soviet government have no information on the disappearance of Alexander D. But what's so unusual about that? Our boys have carried out such arrests in Brussels, which is where Zora Blednov was seized, not just in Moscow. One has to give the organs their due. In an age when public speeches, the plays in our theatres, and women's fashions all seem to have come off assembly lines, arrests can be of the most varied kind. They take you aside in a factory corridor after you have had your pass checked, and you're arrested. They take you from a military hospital with a temperature of 102, as they did with Hans Bernstein, and the doctor will not raise a peep about your arrest. Just let him try. They'll take you right off the operating table, as they took N.M. Vorobiev, a school inspector in 1936, in the middle of an operation for stomach ulcer, and drag you off to a cell, as they did him, half alive and all bloody, as Karpunish recollects. Or, like Nadia Levitskaya, you try to get information about your mother's sentence, and they give it to you, but it turns out to be a confrontation, and your own arrest. In the gastronome, the fancy food store, You are invited to the Special Order Department and arrested there. You are arrested by a religious pilgrim whom you have put up for the night, for the sake of Christ. You are arrested by a meter man who has come to read your electric meter. You are arrested by a bicyclist who has run into you on the street, by a railway conductor, a taxi driver, a savings bank teller, the manager of a movie theater. Any one of them can arrest you, and you notice the concealed maroon-colored identification card only when it is too late. Sometimes arrests even seem to be a game. There's so much superfluous imagination, so much well-fed energy invested in them. After all, the victim would not resist anyway. Is it that the security agents want to justify their employment and their numbers? After all, it would seem enough to send notices to all the rabbits marked for arrest, and they would show up obediently at the designated hour and minute at the iron gates of state security with a bundle in their hands, ready to occupy a piece of floor in the cell for which they were intended. And, in fact, that's the way collective farmers are arrested. Who wants to go all the way to a hut at night with no roads to travel on? They are summoned to the village soviet and arrested there. Manual workers are called into the office. Of course, every machine has a point at which it is overloaded, beyond which it cannot function. In the strained and overloaded years of 1945 and 1946, when trainload after trainload poured in from Europe to be swallowed up immediately and sent off to Gulag, all that excessive theatricality went out the window, and the whole theory suffered greatly. All the fuss and feathers of ritual went flying in every direction, and the arrest of tens of thousands took on the appearance of a squalid roll call. They stood there with lists, read off the names of those on one train, loaded them onto another, and that was the whole arrest. For several decades, political arrests were distinguished in our country precisely by the fact that people were arrested who were guilty of nothing, and were therefore unprepared to put up any resistance whatsoever. There was a general feeling of being destined for destruction, a sense of having nowhere to escape from the GPU NKVD, which, incidentally, given our internal passport system, was quite accurate. And even in the fever of epidemic arrests, when people leaving for work said farewell to their families every day, because they could not be certain they would return at night, even then almost no one tried to run away, and only in rare cases did people commit suicide. And that was exactly what was required. A submissive sheep is a find for a wolf. This submissiveness was also due to ignorance of the mechanics of epidemic arrests. By and large, the organs had no profound reasons for their choice of whom to arrest and whom not to arrest. They merely had overall assignments, quotas for a specific number of arrests. These quotas might be filled on an orderly basis or wholly arbitrarily. In 1937, a woman came to the reception room of the Novocherkassk NKVD to ask what she should do about the unfed, unweaned infant of a neighbor who had been arrested. They said, "Sit down, we'll find out." She sat there for 2 hours, whereupon they took her and tossed her into a cell. They had a total plan which had to be fulfilled in a hurry, and there was no one available to send out into the city, and here was this woman already in their hands. On the other hand, the NKVD did come to get the Latvian Andrei Pavel near Orsha, but he didn't open the door. He jumped out the window, escaped, and shot straight to Siberia. And even though he lived under his own name, and it was clear from his documents that he had come from Orsha, he was never arrested, nor summoned to the organs, nor subjected to any suspicion whatsoever. After all, search for wanted persons falls into 3 categories: all Union, Republican, and provincial. And the pursuit of nearly half of those arrested in those epidemics would have been confined to the provinces. A person marked for arrest by virtue of chance circumstances, such as a neighbor's denunciation, could be easily replaced by another neighbor. Others, like Andrei Pavel, who found themselves in a trap or an ambushed apartment by accident, and who were bold enough to escape immediately before they could be questioned, were never caught and never charged, while those who stayed behind to await justice got a term in prison. And the overwhelming majority, almost all, behaved just like that, without any spirit, helplessly, with a sense of doom.
All right. Well, we'll stop there. And as you can see, once the organs came for the people, It was just flowing after flow after flow of mass arrests. And I mean, he explains it all. So, so I just, I'm not going to give much thought about, this little section that we listened to. I just wanted to introduce you to, the work itself. So maybe you would go into it and maybe listen to some of it, buy the book, and start working on it little by little. Because, but it is heavy though. You see how it's just, arrest after arrest. So it's a heavy read. It's an emotional heavy read. So if you do choose to go into it, just be prepared. I mean, you're gonna get your butt kicked by this book, emotionally. But I think it's something that many of us out there who are on a specific journey, as the this it's a work that we need to familiarize ourselves with. All right, you know what? That's it. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and put the link in the description for this version, and he has all the all the chapters and everything. So if y'all want to listen to that, and also I came across this amazing I say amazing, but horrific. I don't know the word. I can't find the right words, but a 3-part series on Gulag. It's really well done. Footage from the time, historically, everything. It's just really gripping. And I'm going to put the link to that also in the description. So those of you out there who want to dig into Gulag and, the Soviet oppression of its citizenry, as the links will be in the description for that. All right, well, that's it. We'll wrap it up. So if you are new to the show and you enjoy and you like what we're doing here, please hit the subscribe button wherever you're listening to us. Go over to our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button there, because we got all kinds of other content that is not just from the podcast. For all of our fans out there, I did a thesis films on the Dallas St. Patrick's. You want to go check that out on our channel if you haven't yet. If you like what we do, tell your friends, please, and hit the subscribe button and share. That helps out the algorithm. What else? That's it. I am working on our next show, so maybe it won't be too long before I'll be back again. But in the meantime, I want you guys to stay safe, stay healthy. Follow us on our Facebook. Subscribe to our YouTube. Make sure you hit subscribe on wherever you're listening to us on the podcast side. We're growing. We're doing things. We're just trying to reach more ears, and I love every minute of it, and I appreciate you for being here with us, because you're dedicating some time, you're investing some of your time to be here with me and what we're doing here. So I greatly appreciate that. All right guys, so in the meantime, stay safe, stay healthy, stay on this path that we are on. Educate yourself, look for books and stories, a historical value that that'll just arm you with information that this stuff that needs to be known. All right guys, stay safe, stay healthy. I will catch you guys next time. Peace out, folks.
This is Thesis.